on that, and what I see on that is they trying to get him charged as second-degree murder so he can be eligible for probation.
They're trying to get. They're trying to do what?
They try to get it. They charge him with the second-degree murder in order for him to get probation. A lot of people looking at that.
Why would he get probation if he gets second-degree murder?
Because majority of the time when you get charged with second-degree murder, you eligible for probation.
Well, I can tell you something. In this case, as high profile as this case is, if he gets second-degree murder, I doubt the judge can give him probation. But we'll see. I do realize what you're saying happens in some cases, but with the whole nation watching this, she'd be hard-pressed not to put him in jail if he's convicted. But again, and I want to thank a lot of folks listening who went to Sanford and stood with us on this and said, let's go to trial. I want people to understand that this trial is opening because some people did not let it stop at the police station in Sanford. This is a trial that was never supposed to happen if you listen to those in the police department in Sanford. And they never give credit to those that are active. That's what activism does. Now we've got to monitor the trial and make sure it's fair. Let me thank all of you. Let me thank Andre Eglishaw for sitting in most of the show. I'll be all through the show tomorrow and next day on as we build this march. But I'll be here because we need to continue this national dialogue. Let me thank my executive producer, Fatih Muhammad, technical producer, Lee Majors. Don't forget, you that's getting ready for this march, August 24th, Saturday, go to nationalactionnetwork.net or call right now. Put your name down on the roll at 1-877-626-4651. Don't forget tonight and every night, Monday through Friday, 6 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Central. Watch me on Politics Nation with Al Sharpton. And remember, whatever you do, wherever you go, however you feel, tell somebody. Reverend Al told you personally. Keep it real. Keep it real. Keep it real. Talk to you tomorrow. Keep it real.
The views and opinions expressed on this broadcast are not necessarily those of WGCV 620.
Good God! I got to ask you what we need. Soul food. Henry Soul Food. No, we need it. Soul Food. Henry Soul Food. No, I like it. Soul Food. Henry Soul Food. No, we need it. Soul Food. Henry Soul Food. Hit me.
Home of the sweet potato pie. Even the keenest taste buds will tell you the best food on the planet. Large enough to serve you and small enough to know you. So get the Henrys at 5431 Indian Head Highway, Oxon Hill, Maryland, or give us a call at 301-749-6856.
Soul food. Henry Soul Food. What we need. Soul food. Henry Soul Food.
Welcome to the Armstrong Williams Show, brought to you by Golden Crust Bakery, the fastest growing Caribbean-owned franchise in the United States. Golden Crust is committed to the delivery of quality food and excellent customer service. Visit them today at goldencrustbakery.com. Oh, hello everybody, and welcome to this edition of the Armstrong Williams Show. Thank you so much for joining us. It's always good hearing from you. Feeling good, alive and kicking. Got a few things out of the way today. Maxie, how are you? Maxie's not on the line now. Who's it? Is it Dr. Gary Barnard? Let me see. Guess I'm solo. I'm solo for right now. I really want to talk about your impressions of the first day of the Trayvon Martin court case. I love it. It's open mic for now. I know we have people joining us later. I think Maxie is joining us today. It's sad that I don't know the answer. I know Dr. Gary Barnard is joining us at 4:30. He always does. But anyhow, we're doing open mic. We want, I think the sad thing is that, to me, is that Nelson Mandela is ill, gravely ill, and it's sad. I spent a summer in South Africa with Mr. Mandela and his family, and it's very emotional. None of us can come here and stay forever, and you just reflect on his legacy, and it's just sad that people just sitting by the hospital in his home just waiting on the man to die. So it's unfortunate. It's just unfortunate, if you ask me. But however, we just your thoughts on Mr. Mandela. What are your thoughts on Mr. Mandela? Your thoughts? And his legacy, his impact to go from prison to president of South Africa. Richard Prince, how are you?
Fine. How are you doing?
That's
a good way to start the show about a man who was a hero to a lot of people worldwide.
You know what? I couldn't figure out who my guests were, man. And there was
that's all right. I'd like to hear more about your visit with Mr. Mandela when you were there. I didn't realize that.
Yes, I got the first interview, actually, when he came out of Portsmouth. Yes, I'm the one who introduced the likes of Juan Williams, Chris Wallace, and Nightline, all of them to Mr. Mandela, because I'm very close with Mrs. Mandela. It's a long story, but I stay in contact with her, and when Mr. Mandela was released, I'll never forget, we were sitting out in the yard with the fence and all these reporters and these cameras everywhere, and I was talking to Mr. Mandela. And I said, "Tell us what we can do. What can we do to help? What can we do to help?" And he said, "I'm just getting familiar with my surroundings again. It's just such a shock. So much has changed, but little has changed." And then he was walking us through the house, and he came upon this little room, and all these young people are in there working. And he said, we got these thousands of letters come in here. He always referred to me as Mr. Williams. And he said, we have all these letters, and we're trying to do our best to respond to them. We're not as sophisticated. I said, we'll do it for you. I said, we'll respond to the mail for you. And so I got my boy Juan Williams, and Mr. Mandela put us in that room, and we answered all of those letters.
Is that right? I hadn't heard that story.
That he signed. It's a true story that he signed. Yes, it's a true story. And he was so grateful after 2 weeks when we finished. And man, understand something. They did not have internet and computers back then. They had typewriters.
Right.
We wrote those letters on typewriters, okay?
You and Juan Williams?
Juan Williams and I, yes. And at the end of it, he was so appreciative. He said, I've got to do something for you. I said, I want you to do something that you probably haven't done for anybody else. He said, what is that? I said, I want you to sign Juan's and my passport with your name and Mrs. Mandela. And they signed our passports. And once I got back to the States, I framed them, never to use it again.
Right. Wow.
And
I should put that in my column.
It's true. It's true. It's true. It's a true story. And so I will never forget, I was standing by his side when all the journalists, Charlie Hunt, Galt, all of them were trying to stand beside him to get a picture. And he was asking me, did I know these Americans, compatriots, and what did I think? Should they do this interview? Yes, a little snotty-nosed kid like me, Richard.
Right. Wow, that's something. This is about 1990, I guess.
It was 1990. And we were there. We were there. I was there. I got pictures with them. I'll text it to you.
Thank you. I'd like to see that. And did you ever write about it?
No, because it was so personal, and I was in such a trusted position. Someone said to me, Richard, I was talking to someone who was in South Africa at the time, a photographer, He said, man, I really respect you. You never really explored it. You never talked about it. You guys put those letters together. And then Juan called me, got me thinking last week, because everybody thinks he's on his deathbed. Juan said, Fox asked me to put this together. And he said, I got to thinking, man, you're the one who introduced me. And we wrote all those letters. I said, yes, we did, man.
Wow.
And it was emotional. It was
imagine.
It was emotional. And I'll tell you this. You haven't heard this one either.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, when everything calmed down, about a week and a half, and after everything was crazy in the beginning, so Mr. Mandela's Walter Sisulu was there too at the time.
Okay.
And Cyril Ramaphosa, who's over the unions, the mine unions, now billionaire now, by the way. All these people. But anyhow, Mrs. Mandela's assistant, Dudu, because we were staying at the the Johannesburg Sun or the Cart. We were staying at one of the hotels.
Mm-hmm.
And I got word, and back then we had these big cell phones. You don't remember those big cell phones?
Oh, yeah.
Bigger than a notebook.
Right.
We had these big cell phones. I'll never forget, Dudu called me saying Mrs. Mandela said they're going to finally get a break. They would be honored if you just come and have breakfast. Oh. Because I've been working.
Mandela.
Huh? Both. Nelson and Winnie.
Nelson Mandela and Winnie Mandela.
That's right. This was before his now wife. So anyhow, I went over. They had this meal prepared, and Richard, he thanked me. He was just thanking me. I felt so bad. I said, "Oh, this is the least." He said, "Oh, you did a fine job." He said, "I thank you so much." And I said to him, I said, I want to talk about Porsmore and prison life, and I really, for you to tell me that what is that you remember the most. And he became very emotional. He didn't want to talk about it. I said, oh, and I kept insisting. He said, I want to tell you a story about forgiveness. And he told me this story about what the prison guards would do to the prisoners in Porsmore. He thought it was the most woeful, the most awful thing that could ever happen to a human being. What they would do to punish them, not even to punish them, but to remind them who still had the power and that they were nothing. They would strip them naked on the hottest day, and they would bury them under the hottest area of the sand. And the only thing that you could see is their face. And then the prison guards would proceed to urinate in their faces.
Oh.
Yes, he told me that story. Oh, and he was emotional.
I can imagine.
And yet he told me it never happened to him. But he felt terrible that it happened to his comrades. And he kept talking, and they kept coming to him seeking knowledge, and then sometimes they would slip him books. And then when the authorities would walk in and they realized he had books, they would be angry. And sometimes prison guards would be removed, but Mr. Mandela had such a magical effect on them. They were all under his spell. But anyhow, these very people who in the beginning abused him, said ugly things to him, became some of his closest allies and advisors and security guards once he became president.
Wow.
Can you believe that?
That is something.
Yes.
Amazing.
Remembering. So, yeah, I have my my Mandela stories. But just listen, I've been around many world leaders. This man was just special. He never lost the common touch. He was just and even when he came out of prison, to me, he was old. To me, you could see that he was worn.
Right.
He was gray. But he talked about the importance of forgiveness, and he talked about that's the only way you can move on and heal. He said, especially when you can forgive your enemies, considering the kind of treatment that had happened to them in Porsmore.
Right.
And as a young boy, I will never forget that. It really left an impression on me. Two things I've always taken from Mr. Mandela. Two things he taught me is forgiveness and being a peacemaker. A peacemaker. Those are two things I did take from him, and I'll never forget.
What prompted you to go over there in the first place?
Huh?
What prompted you to go over there in the first place?
Well, I worked for Bob Brown.
Who I remember Bob Brown.
Managed the Mandela children here. At BNC Associates. And when I started working for Mr. Brown, that account was assigned to me.
Okay.
So I would travel back and forth to Boston University, and then the opportunity came where they really wanted me to visit South Africa upon the release of Mr. Mandela. I visited several times before then, but they really wanted me there because Mr. Mandela wanted to thank all of us for our service to his children. We'll talk about much more of that.
Say bye-bye burgers, pass on the pizza, forget the francs. Anytime is party time. Discover Golden Crust's authentic Jamaican-style patties. Beef, chicken, vegetables, soya, spinach, and shrimp. Feast on our great taste sensations. Jerk chicken, oxtail, sliced fish, and much more. Savor the taste of the Caribbean. Only at a Golden Crust near you. A family tradition since 1949. GoldenCrustBakery.com.
For more information on the Armstrong-Williams Show, please visit our new website at www.rightsidewire.com. There you can find his syndicated column archive, view live streams, and get your favorite conservative pundits' views on the current issues affecting the American people. From building wealth to foreign policy, stay connected with Armstrong-Williams and his colleagues at the all-new www.rightsidewire.com.
Hi, this is Armstrong Williams. What does it mean to be conservative? Freedom of speech, freedom of free enterprise, freedom of assembly, less government, less taxes. As a matter of fact, a flat tax. Everyone should pay proportional tax. It doesn't matter whether you make $100 million or $10,000. Everyone should pay their 10%. Everyone should have something at stake in this American economy. I'm Armstrong Williams expressing what we mean by conservative traditional value.
Does your school, team, church, or charity need a new fundraiser? Do you need to work out of your home or part-time? Are you a small business that can use an additional revenue stream? Then you need Yellow Llama. Do you need affordable web services or tools to enhance your existing business? Are you a graphic artist who wants to create a revenue stream with your art but not get ripped off? Then go to www.yellowllama.com.
America must change course if we hope to survive and save the American dream for our children and grandchildren. How do we fix Social Security and Medicare? How do we cut government spending? How do we reform health care? How do we simplify the tax code? The Heritage Foundation has a bold plan that tackles these tough problems using common sense solutions that leave partisan politics on the sidelines. Find out how we can save the American dream at savingthedream.org, paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
Hi, this is Armstrong Williams with an opportunity to own a piece of paradise in Nassau, Bahamas. Spectacular land prices, 8,000 square feet, 20,000 square feet lot, affordable prices, hilltop properties with views of the magnificent sea. Just call 242-677-3120 or 3121 or go to info@rightsidewire.com and leave your information.
Where heads of state, sports, entertainment, and political celebrities meet. You're listening to Armstrong Williams.
Did you ever meet him, Richard?
No, I never have. I do regret that. I never had that opportunity. And I do remember when he came to the United States, and everyone was just, the crowds were so wild.
I spent the day with him when he was in New York.
Oh, did you?
And visited with him in his suite up in New York with his family. I was there.
All right. Wasn't it Yankee Stadium? I'm sorry.
That's right. I was there.
Right, wow. Now, Juan Williams, what was he just accompanying you, or was he there on his own as well?
Oh, he was on his own, and of course, you got to get access for your boy now. You got to take care of him.
Right.
He would have harassed
So he
me.
wasn't there reporting on this for anybody.
He was there representing the Washington Post, and so, I took care of him.
Oh, he was there for the Washington Post
Yes,
at
the time he was with the Post. That's right.
Right. Well, all right. Then he must have written about it then.
I'm sure he did.
Yeah.
I'm sure he
did.
That's
something. That's a memory, all right.
That is a memory.
And if he does pass, that's going to be quite a worldwide memorial.
Well, he is passing. He's in the death.
He's in that stage. Yeah.
I can tell you that.
But it's also interesting that he's in this condition. Just months after or weeks after Margaret Thatcher passed away.
But you have to understand something. I'm going to shock you. I probably shouldn't say this.
Yes.
He hasn't been alert for a year.
Is that right? He hasn't been alert for a year.
No.
Hmm.
Even when the Obamas visited him, when she visited him with his daughters,
Yes.
he didn't even know they were in the room.
Wow.
I mean, it's just,
Well, I guess it's that time then.
yeah, he's been out of it for a while.
Right. But you remember when Margaret Thatcher died, there was some controversy about whether she should be celebrated or not, and then one of the things they brought up was that she had called the ANC terrorists, and whether that was,
Oh, I remember that. But
what to make of that.
That should have had anything to do with her legacy.
Not really.
No.
What do you think about her legacy in terms of
she was
South Africa and other places?
She was against apartheid. It's the way she went about it was the issue.
Mm.
Steve Forbes invited me on his luxury yacht maybe 10 years ago, and I had a chance to spend 3 hours talking to Lady Thatcher and her husband just alone on the yacht.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. You know what? I'm just thinking, man, I've had some interesting experiences.
You certainly have.
I have. I forget about these things, but
Yes.
I actually sat with her, and I will tell you what I was struck by. I should have written about this at the time of this controversy, but I buried this stuff, is how glowing she was about Mr. Mandela.
Really?
When she found him. Oh, glowing. Yes. Yes, glowing.
Mm.
And that is
Well,
why.
that's something. I don't think it was mutual. I don't think he would be glowing about her, but maybe he would be. Who knows?
Yeah, you might be surprised at those back room, what really works on the back channels. You may be surprised.
Interesting.
Yeah, because the Queen, he was a regular guest at Buckingham.
Is that right?
Yes, he was.
Interesting.
I remember when they were going to London once, and Zanani, who's now the ambassador to one of those South American countries, tried to get us to come to London, but just couldn't get it done. I just couldn't. But, it's a blessing because, I remember when Mrs. Mandela was here a couple of years ago, she spoke at a college in North Carolina. And listen, we were there during the summer when they were trying to make Mandela's birthday a national holiday. Look, brother, you have no idea. I've seen death firsthand in South Africa.
Mm.
Yeah, I just.
What happened to the national holiday?
I
don't know if they ever did that. Or did
no. I'm sorry. I'm thinking about Martin Luther King. They were pushing for his release.
Okay, that's it.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Mm-hmm.
So, Richard, I feel like I'm being interviewed today.
It's not every day you're on the phone with somebody who's had the experiences that you've had.
I really feel like I'm being the one. It's strange because I loved the Mandelas. I love Winnie. I really got to know them. I must tell you, I was up close and personal. I even sensed the divide between them when we had breakfast together.
Yeah,
I sensed it. It was so obvious that they were strangers, and I understood it. Yes.
Because of that long separation.
It would happen to you of any of us, Richard.
Right. But
and people forget,
all of us who were around then do remember all the efforts that she made to keep his case alive.
And understand, she's about 20-some years his junior.
Right.
But what a giant! What a giant! Just especially for the world. I mean, people love Mr. Mandela.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, I remember.
And what an inspiration for that continent too.
Yeah, I remember letters coming in from Reagan, Gorbachev, Elton Kennedy. We responded to all those letters.
Right.
The Bushes. It's true, man.
Well, I hope you didn't respond to those letters. I mean, I hope they had something more official.
No, we responded to them.
Oh, really? You responded to the letters from Gorbachev?
We responded to everything, man. That's what I'm telling you. They did have a but understand, at this time when he was responding, he was not president.
Right. He was just a citizen.
He was just a citizen. So we created his own stationery. We got to the point where I was trying to run so many things by him because these are such important people. He said, look, just right. Right. I'll never forget his strong voice. He said, just right.
Wow. So Reagan and Gorbachev.
Yeah, and look, it scared me, Rich. He said, just right. And then compose everything and bring to me. And if we change something, we'll change it. That's how he was. I said, that makes sense. I can't keep running him with every little thing. I mean.
Right. Well, plus you had already typed it out.
Yeah, and then he really appreciated how advanced Americans were. He was so proud.
Is that right?
Yo, he was so. Oh yeah, he was so proud. Yeah, I remember reading the letters that were coming. And man, Richard, you talking about responding to the letters? Reading the letters were overwhelming to me. Reading them.
Why? How so? What were the Americans saying?
Listen, from Muhammad Ali to, I mean, it was. You have to understand the time that it was during that time.
Right.
The people that were significant in the world at the time.
Yes.
The people who were running the world from Israel and Egypt. Letters from Mubarak. I mean, you talk about it was a different kind of world back then. It was more of an old school world. Terrorism wasn't an issue then.
Right.
It was a different world.
Yes. Yes. Well, we still have the Cold War, though.
Yeah, they had the Cold War, but I'll never forget Gorbachev's. But understand, Thatcher and Reagan started the de-icing of that Cold War.
And Gorbachev.
And Gorbachev, yeah, Gorbachev.
Right.
Yeah, I remember. And listen, here's the thing that really impressed me. A lot of those letters were handwritten. They were not even they were handwritten. Many of them.
And the world leaders even.
Yes, were handwritten.
Wow. Well, that's quite something, even from Ronald Reagan.
Ronald Reagan and Richard Nixon.
Nixon was also.
Yes, Richard Nixon. He was alive. It was Richard Nixon, yes. Jimmy Carter. Yes, Jimmy Carter.
Wow. Well, that's something. You know, I wonder if they have a museum or something that that will hold all this memorabilia.
You know I'm going to ask, don't you? Richard,
yes.
This is just a good conversation. It shows such progress for you and I. I mean, I'm really emotional. It's amazing. You really have, because you know how you don't want to think about things all at once because it could really overwhelm you.
Yes.
I was just really, just the feeling when I heard. Well, I have back channels, so I sort of knew about his health, but. And the fact that we stayed in touch is just, I mean, he was just a good soul. The Lord had a purpose for him.
You stayed in touch all these years.
Yeah, I stayed in touch with him. Yes.
Wow.
Stayed in touch. Mr. Brown. Oh, yeah, stayed in touch. Yes, absolutely.
Mr. Brown is still with us, too?
Yes, Mr. Brown still just turned, on February 26th, he just turned 28. 78.
78. Wow. That's something. Wow, I'm learning quite a lot.
You should really talk to Mr. Brown. Oh, he can tell you. Oh, listen, South Africa was just an incredible place. I was in South Africa. I remember before the release of Mr. Mandela, we went to this club, it was the name of it, We. And I remember how they were letting us in and they would not let the other Africans in, said, oh, no, they're little monkeys. We can't let them in here. I said, how do you distinguish between, oh, you're Americans. Listen at your accent. You're welcome. I said, what a crazy contradiction. This is crazy.
So these are whites that were saying that.
Yes, brother. Yes. Yes, brother. Yes. Oh, Juan reminded me of that, by the way, a couple of weeks ago.
I'm sorry, what reminded you of that?
Juan reminded me of that.
Juan reminded you of that?
Oh, pure unadulterated racism. I just found them to be so ignorant.
Yes, yes.
It was just disgusting for me, actually.
Yes. Well, I was just reading a release by a group that was commenting on the affirmative action decision of the Supreme Court today. And
what was the decision? I didn't hear. What was the decision?
Well, the decision was not to do anything, to remand it back to the lower courts, and not to take up this case from Texas. Just send it back to the lower courts because they didn't consider everything that the Supreme Court thought they should consider. So there was no big decision about that. They're going to wait now, apparently, for the University of Michigan case to come before them before they really weigh in. But I was thinking of that because this group called Project 21 it said in its response, the vision of the framers and Martin Luther King is validated. There is simply no need to continue academic or employment apartheid in America any longer. Now, when you talk about what apartheid was really like, I mean, we keep in...
Hold that point, Richard. We're coming back. Hold there. We're coming back. Don't go away.
For more information on the Armstrong-Williams Show, please visit our new website at www.rightsidewire.com. There you can find his syndicated column archive, view live streams, and get your favorite conservative pundits' views on the current issues affecting the American people. From building wealth to foreign policy, stay connected with Armstrong-Williams and his colleagues at the all-new www.rightsidewire.com.
Life is full of unexpected changes. Everyone has potential to do wrong. And when they choose to do it, contact the Bucksell Group for your private investigation needs. TheBucksellGroup.com or by phone at 202-243-9746. Whether there's an instance of a cheating spouse, child custody, process service, or security, don't continue suspecting. Get closure so that you can move on with your life. Visit TheBucksellGroup.com now or call 202-243-9746. If you think it's happening, it probably is.
To travelers along the road of life who have fallen asleep at the wheel, to the many who woke up in time to avert disaster and get back on the righteous path. For the ones who crashed and survived and now adhere vigilantly to a virtuous and righteous path. Finally, Armstrong-Williams' much-anticipated new book, Reawakening Virtues, gives his insights into these daily challenges and much more. Reawakening Virtues is available in bookstores and at Amazon.com.
Join the millions of Americans who pursue one of our country's finest traditions, from hunting to sport shooting. Since 1871, the NRA has grown as a service organization involved in all aspects of shooting sports and is a proud defender of the Bill of Rights. Join today to begin taking advantage of exclusive membership offers and discounts, including up to $25,000 in insurance coverage. Contact the NRA today. Call 1-800-672-3888 or visit nra.org.
Most Americans simply have never been taught the basics of money management, let alone how to secure their financial future. But there is hope. Financial Education and Literacy Advisors, also known as FELA, does what others don't. FELA teaches financial education. If you'd like more information about providing a financial wellness program for your employees, or a credit-bearing college course in personal finance, or other valuable programs, please visit myfela.com. That's myfela.com, or send an email to info@myfela.com.
Elder Chicks is an exciting part of the fastest growing segment of the population. Women in their 70s, 80s, and older who are mastering the art of a senior life. We're no longer unseen and unheard. We're providing role models for each other and the baby boomers who are fast approaching retirement. Join our virtual community. Hit www.elderchicks.com on your computer keyboard.
Where heads of state, sports, entertainment, and political celebrities meet. You're listening to Armstrong-Williams.
And our guest, Richard Prince, and Gary Barnard, how are you?
I'm doing great, Armstrong.
That's
how are
good.
you doing?
Just fine. Now, Richard, they did strike down race preferences in college admissions today. Richard.
That's not the way I understood it. I thought they remanded it to the lower courts for more, for more work.
Well,
maybe you have different information.
Let me tell you what I'm looking at. That a decision today by the U.S. Supreme Court struck down the use of race as a determining factor in public college admission.
Who was saying that?
It's the Fisher versus University of Texas at Austin case, right?
Right.
That's what's being reported.
But who's reporting it that way?
I've been reading what's on the wires.
Oh yeah, in fact, this is I see this Project 21 is interpreting it that way also, but that's not the way I understand it from the news accounts that I've been listening to and reading. They remanded it back down to the lower courts. So we'll see what happens at the next step, because it was 7-1. So that if it was really something quite that decisive. It wouldn't have been 7-1. It'd have been, but a
you're
lot more.
You're
a lot
saying
closer.
they returned it to the fifth court.
Exactly. So they didn't really strike down anything. They just returned the
Well,
case.
how could Project 21
Get it wrong like that? Well, but as I said, when you use terms like apartheid to describe affirmative action, people don't take you seriously because you're not being precise with your words.
So the Supreme Court sidestepped making any major decision in the Fisher versus University of Texas.
Exactly.
And
so
asked
we're
the lower
going to have to
court.
wait till the next case, which is University of Michigan, for them to weigh in again.
So they asked the lower courts for a do-over on the affirmative action case.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
Right.
So Gary Barnard, is there still a place and a need for affirmative action today in education?
I would think so. I think to paint a wide brush on any concept is probably begging for some controversy, but I can see all kinds of places that need affirmative action.
And Richard, you agree?
Well, I was listening to a lot of debate about this today, and I think a couple of things people are not talking about, and that is when you're putting together a college class that everybody will benefit from, it's not just race that is a factor. People, that's the one that's drawing all the lightning, from these groups that oppose it. But colleges make decisions based on what state you're from as well, because they want a balanced student body from people from all kinds of backgrounds, as well as economic status. You know that Harvard has this program where if you're below a certain income level, you don't have to pay tuition. And, they want people from, they want to have a good educational experience for all the students who go there, so that when they go out into the world, they'll be able to deal with all different kinds of people. And that involves not just race, but nobody complains when they give a full-freight scholarship because you're a good athlete, or the legacy admissions, or they look more favorably upon students from Alaska because they don't have anybody from Alaska in their student body. It's only when it comes to race that it becomes this lightning rod. And as somebody pointed out, a lot of universities today have diversity as one of their core values of the university. And so therefore, if you want to live up to your core values, you've got to work for diversity. And I think then in those cases, the government should just butt out.
But here's what I'm a little perplexed about.
Yes.
Which is the standard of strict scrutiny, which does not permit a court to accept the school's assertion that its admissions process uses race in a permissive way without closely examining how the process works in practice. In other words, instead, what they're doing, the burden of proof is on a university to show that each applicant is evaluated as an individual and not in a way that makes an applicant's race or ethnicity the defining feature of his or her application.
Right, and I think that whole logic just turns things on its head, because you're not subjecting them to strict scrutiny when you make the decision based on what state they came from or whether they're a good athlete, but you're using it in terms of race, and the basis for using it in terms of race are those post-Civil War amendments to the Constitution, which were designed to help black people, not to harm them. And yet they're using those to say, well, we intended to be colorblind. That's what those you can't discriminate against anyone. Well, no, that's not at all. Those amendments were designed to bring black people into the mainstream of society.
Dr. Barnard?
Well, I agree. I think the issue, in my view, and I can only speak for me, I know what I've heard from other people and what our tradition and history teaches us, but it's not a racial issue to me. I think, diversity is kind of an interesting term. It's look around nature. We depend on diversity, and it's a natural principle. And it just seems to me that one of the most unfair things we can do in this world is to treat unequal people equally. And that doesn't sound right. I know, even coming out of my mouth, that doesn't sound right because we talk about equality. Well, that's just not natural. I mean, we need to treat people fairly. We need to treat people with equal opportunity. We need to treat people with equal dignity because those are our God-given rights. It doesn't matter if we're from the farm or the inner city, from an Ivy League school or not even going to college, whether we're black or white or brown. Those aren't the issues to me. Yes, they are part of diversity. But, affirmative action seems like it was purposeful to try to encourage and change some of the tapestry because of some of the past. And I think when we do that, we're enriched by it. Now, I'm not for handing out anything to anybody, whether it's race or, purely on economic terms. I think that's where perhaps we get things a bit distorted. But, yeah, I agree basically what Richard said.
Richard?
Yes.
It seems like the Supreme Court gave some kind of a victory to Ms. Fisher, but they still passed the buck.
Well, I don't know. I just don't see that where she got a victory, but maybe I haven't read enough on that.
Well, let me just, from what I think, is that it allowed affirmative action to survive in college admissions, but imposed a tough legal standard ruling that schools must prove there are no workable race-neutral alternatives to achieve diversity on campus. And now, while the ruling was not a sweeping pronouncement on the future of affirmative action, it amounts to a warning to colleges nationwide, Richard and Dr. Barnard, that the courts will treat race-conscious admissions policy with a high degree of skepticism. And so, and it was a 7-1 vote. And so, which was brought by Ms. Fisher, when she was denied and claimed that her constitutional rights and federal civil rights were violated. She was grateful to the justices for moving the nation closer. The appeals court sided with the university, but the Supreme Court ruled that the lower court did not hold the university to the demanding burden of strict scrutiny. Instead, that lower courts presumed that the school had acted in good faith and required her to otherwise to go to the high court. And so it was favorable to her, but it was a sigh of relief because there was the potential that the justices would issue a really major ruling headed in a conservative direction, which is sort of eliminating affirmative action altogether.
Right. Some people were relieved that they didn't go down that route. But again, I have to say that I think that this whole business about strict scrutiny is premised on it has the basis for that is wrong. As I say, if you go back to the 13th and 14th and 15th Amendments, they weren't saying that we need to ignore race and any consideration of race is wrong. They were saying we need to do something to bring these folks to the mainstream of society, and that's what these colleges are trying to do as well. So if you're basing your decisions on the premise that the Constitution wants everybody to be race neutral, that's a wrong premise. The Constitution is not race neutral, and those amendments were not race neutral, at least when you go look at the history of how they came to be. So that's I think it was John Paul Stevens who was very strong when he was on the court in making that case that we have to consider history when we're talking about all of this. It doesn't exist in a vacuum.
No, you can't not decide it in a vacuum. There's too much that's at stake here. We're going to come back. Richard, don't go worry. Dr. Gary Barnard, you have some things that you want to talk about. I want Richard to chime in. With 866-620-6620. I'm Armstrong Williams. Info at rightsidewire.com. We'll be back.
Armstrong Williams returns in a moment.
Say bye-bye burgers, pass on the pizza, forget the francs. Anytime is party time. Discover Golden Cross's authentic Jamaican-style patties. Beef, chicken, vegetables, soya, spinach, and shrimp. Feast on our great taste sensations. Jerk chicken, oxtail, sliced fish, and much more. Savor the taste of the Caribbean. Only at a Golden Cross near you. A family tradition since 1949. GoldenCrossBakery.com.
For more information on the Armstrong Williams Show, please visit our new website at www.rightsidewire.com. There you can find his syndicated column archive, view live streams, and get your favorite conservative pundits' views on the current issues affecting the American people. From building wealth to foreign policy, stay connected with Armstrong Williams and his colleagues at the all-new www.rightsidewire.com.
Does your school, team, church, or charity need a new fundraiser? Do you need to work out of your home or part-time? Are you a small business that can use an additional revenue stream? Then you need Yellow Llama. Do you need affordable web services or tools to enhance your existing business? Are you a graphic artist who wants to create a revenue stream with your art but not get ripped off? Then go to www.yellowllama.com.
Anderson Brothers Bank, a family-owned and operated establishment that blends traditional personal service, local market awareness, and advanced technology to meet the financial needs of its customers. Visit abbank.com or call 843-464-6271 to see how they can assist you with your banking needs. Anderson Brothers Bank, celebrating 75 years of community banking, the way it should be. Stability right in your backyard since 1933.
America must change course if we hope to survive and save the American dream for our children and grandchildren. How do we fix Social Security and Medicare? How do we cut government spending? How do we reform health care? How do we simplify the tax code? The Heritage Foundation has a bold plan that tackles these tough problems using common sense solutions that leave partisan politics on the sidelines. Find out how we can save the American dream at savingthedream.org, paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
Join the millions of Americans who pursue one of our country's finest traditions, from hunting to sport shooting. Since 1871, the NRA has grown as a service organization involved in all aspects of shooting sports and is a proud defender of the Bill of Rights. Join today to begin taking advantage of exclusive membership offers and discounts, including up to $25,000 in insurance coverage. Contact the NRA today. Call 1-800-672-3888 or visit nra.org.
Where heads of state, sports, entertainment, and political celebrities meet. You're listening to Armstrong Williams.
So, Dr. Barnard, what's on your mind today?
Well, a lot of things are on my mind. But, one thing I thought I'd love for us to try to do, and it doesn't have to be so much today, but is to try to engage the listeners, your listeners, our listeners, and try to get more of that interaction. When we talk about families or, higher court rulings, there's always some practical application to that. But a lot of times we tend to talk about these things in a pretty cerebral, in a vacuum kind of way. I know we try to make applications, but it sure would be nice to get parents and grandparents involved in our discussion. For example, like today, my latest blog was about summertime and making transitions from our academic school year into the summertime. And these are no more important and no less important than any of the topics we talk about, but it's real stuff. But it seems like just throwing out ideas in the abstract and not hearing from people and getting that other part of the interaction is less than what it could be. So I'm a little frustrated. I would love somehow to figure out a way to engage the listeners in these conversations.
What are your take on that?
What do you think about that?
What's your take on that, Richard?
Well, I think everybody can relate to summertime. and how to deal with summertime. What did you have to say in your blog about that?
Well, you know, if you talk to parents a lot, you hear all of the high expectations. It's much like for me going into the holiday season. We have these expectations, and more than likely they don't match up with our reality. And then we say, well, I need to do this differently next year. Well, this is one of the frustrations with parents. How do we entertain our children? They're entertained, so to speak, at school. How do we do it? And what kind of schedule, and how do we, have child care, or if we're at home with them? And these are really rich things. Summertime is a great time. It's a time of change and recovery and relaxation, but we still thrive on schedules. So, it typically takes some planning, or we're going to be disappointed, and kids tend to get to the boredom meter, that tolerance level, the boredom tolerance level, a lot quicker if we don't have some things planned in our schedule. What I would start with is, number one, our job as parents, it's just an idea, but I believe it, our job as parents is not to entertain them. It really isn't. I mean, you may feel that, but our job is to set up an appropriate environment for them to learn how to entertain themselves. And so we become the engineer or the manager of the environment, which is we set a schedule that's reasonable, and we follow it. And we encourage them to work out the other part. Now, that takes some effort, there's no doubt, but it sure does reduce stress when we think it's our job to keep them from being bored. It's our job to resolve every conflict they have with siblings. And, that's just impossible. So we're headed for doom even before we get started, if that's our approach.
Richard, you think we're headed for doom?
If that's our approach, he says. Well, that made me think about the role of grandparents, too, when you're talking like that, because when you bring grandparents in the picture, they can always talk about, well, how I raised you as the parent,
Right. Yeah, but we get our chance as grandparents to even make some transitions, and change is hard. We were just talking about it with race issues, apartheid, whatever.
Yeah.
Change is hard, but for grandparents, I just had my grandkids. We had our grandkids this weekend.
All right.
And it takes a lot of energy, there's no doubt, but it sure is easier when you're a part-time parent. You can give them back to their parents, but it's really not all that difficult. I'm tired afterwards because I'm much more on the floor and playing, and gosh, I try to play basketball with them, and I'm sore. I play tennis twice a week, but it's not basketball, and I'm sore from that, and there are all these things, but there are ways that we can, in a natural sort of way, if we follow the rules, turn things back over to them. And if they learn, and that's our approach, really, if we can teach them to resolve their own conflicts, deal with boredom.
Right. Well, this also comes into public policy, too, the implications of all this, because especially in a lot of urban areas, they think it's necessary or beneficiary to have summer jobs programs, and to keep and that the city or the municipality has a responsibility to weigh in on this and to keep the kids occupied. And also
community centers are a huge part of that.
Yes, public swimming pools, and also giving the kids jobs, teenagers, so that they can earn some income over the summer.
I agree. That's very important.
Mm-hmm.
And they need
and it ends up I live in Washington, D.C., so I know here that when Marion Barry was in charge of, he created all these summer job programs when he was mayor, and those people grew to voting age, and they all remembered that and voted for him, and that was part of his political base. Those summer jobs programs, because they remembered how much they were helped by having those summer jobs.
And you know what? It's amazing wherever I go around the city. So many young people who are adults today felt that he gave them a chance.
Right.
A simple thing, but yet it had such a profound impact.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I bet you every one of us at our age can go back and come up with all kinds of names of people and opportunities and situations that did the same for us. Some came from our parents and our family, and we may have more or less than others, but every one of us have these opportunities, these special times, these transitional things in our life that open the door for more meaningful things for us. And I think that's just part of living together. It's not handing out, it's sort of putting a hand out and helping people step up. Now, there are people that don't step up, and we don't have much to do about that, really. There are consequences for that, and I think many times we distort that in such a dramatic way that they don't learn. But, there are all kinds of ways for us as a society to deal with that without government dictating it, I think. But it's a fine balance in everything that we do.
Well, here's another implication, public policy implication of all of this, and that is our schools, because a lot of students are behind, and the school year and this whole summer vacation idea was originally based on when the kids had to be out there tending the crops, and we're not really living that kind of a society any longer, and the American children are in many ways behind those in other parts of the world, and a lot of folks think that we're wasting this time by keeping them out of school and giving them such a long vacation.
Well, and so one of the public policy changes at district levels is, in our city in San Antonio and around the country, is to have the extended school year, where you have many different blocks of time, like spring breaks and so on, but you go year-long school. And it does match up with a two-parent working family situation. And these are things that would really be nice to get more people engaged in at a public policy. But it starts, with us. We have to recognize that things aren't the same as they used to be. And there are reasons why we come up with programs. And if they don't seem to work, or they work for a while and they're not now, we need to make adjustments.
So in other words, in San Antonio, they already have the extended school year.
Yes, not every district, but there are, not every campus, but there are schools almost in every district. We have 13 school districts, and I think every one of them have extended school year.
All right.
But you don't have to be in it. It's not imposed upon you.
Mm-hmm. But if you want to, you can take advantage of it, you can.
Right, and if there are children that are identified with some special needs, or one of them may be just to have credit recovery or course recovery or some remediation, that can be built into their curriculum.
And I'm sure the parents like it, too, because the supervision is up to the school.
Right, many do. Now, there are some that don't. They're really hanging on to this idea that, no, summertime is our time to take off and travel, and I get that. I'm not trying to force anything on anyone, but it does make sense to start talking about this publicly.
I agree. I think it's a good idea, particularly because I do remember that one of the things that the president was saying when he, I forgot in which speech it was, State of the Union or one of them, about this whole notion of how far behind American children are when you talk about the STEM disciplines, science, technology, and math, and all these, and how we really need to get our students up to speed on all this stuff. And summertime is a good time to do some of that.
That's exactly right. Some of the private schools and a few of the public schools here have sort of a canon, and they follow this, and they will give summer assignments, and to stay in their school, you must do that. Now, I'm a firm believer in keeping kids, their schedules such that you can touch all of the bases, sort of in the Greek model. But, if you look at recreation, if you look at intellectual, academic, cognitive development stuff, if you look at social, if you look at free time, you can take those things and incorporate a pretty nice schedule where there's plenty of free time, but they're still picking up on these things. Now,
gentlemen, we are out of time. It's amazing.
Okay.
Richard, Gary, we've got to do this again. You guys are a good team.
Okay.
Thank you.
Love to.
And Richard, thank you for your interview.
Well, thank you very much. I'm glad that we had this opportunity.
We'll do it again. Take care, everyone.
For more information on the Armstrong